And the next speaker is Miss Tausi Suedi. She is the co-founder and chief strategic advisor, Childbirth Survival International, and an adjunct professor of international health at Towson University. She'll be tackling the topic, empowering the girl child and the boy child. Yes, because we sometimes forget that the boy child is also vulnerable. We know how vulnerable the girl child is, especially in Africa. So that's what she'll be tackling. Can we have her on?
Yes. Can you hear me, Susan?
Yes, I can. Welcome.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever our audiences are based today. Thank you so much, Susan, for the introduction. I'd first like to thank PLO Lumumba Foundation and the entire team for organizing this conference, but most so for the request that I received from Professor Lumumba to give brief remarks on this particular topic of empowering the boy, girl, and the boy child. And he reached out because of the work that I have typically been involved in for the several years now, when it comes to educating, girls and boys, especially in sub-Saharan Africa or across the African continent. I first want to start off with a quote from, of course, somebody that everybody knows, Nelson Mandela, where he said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." So as we're talking about being powerful or empowering the boy and the girl child, we have to recognize the disparities or the inequities when it comes to education across the board, when it comes to both boys and girls. Africa has a population of over 1 billion people, and almost more than 200 million of them are young people between the ages of 15 to 24 years old. When you further break that down, you have millions, approximately 30 million children that will never go to school. And you have almost 16 or to 20 million girls that will never go to school. So as we're talking about redefining Pan-Africanism and the role of young people, we definitely want to make sure that we're not leaving some people behind. I've been listening to conversations since the beginning, or since the kickoff of the virtual conference. And what I felt or what I have missed hearing is how are we redesigning programs, or how are we incorporating policies to make sure that the last child, especially the girl child in the most rural community, is not left behind when it comes to education, where we often see things like, or cultural practices like early childhood marriage, or lack of support for the girl child to go to school as being one of those barriers for the girl child, or even just the basic perception that a girl child should not go to school because her role as a girl child is to stay at home and to be able to be supportive in the home and help her mother be able to learn how to become a woman or a mother down the road, and not necessarily pursue an education that of course will be beneficial not only for her family but even for her community and the country. So as we talk about, the role of young people, it's important for us, especially those who are on today's call, to recognize that you have a huge role to play. Yes, we can talk about, different business sectors of entrepreneurship and tourism and all kinds of sectors, but, it's your duty right now to ensure that the policies or the programs that you're working on are holistic and inclusive in the sense that they're able to lift up every single person, including the girl child. When we look at maternal mortality or maternal health in terms of how many women die in pregnancy and childbirth, or even immediately after giving birth, what they call as the postpartum period, many of them are young girls between the ages of 15 to 19 years old. WHO says every single day you have about 800 women around the world that are dying in pregnancy or immediately after giving birth due to pregnancy-related or even preventable complications. But a good chunk of those are in developing countries. And in sub-Saharan Africa alone, you have every single day, I want everyone who's listening to this to let that number stick in your head.
Sorry to cut in there. Can you put on your video, because there are other people who want to see who's speaking.
Oh, sure. Hear me now?
Please carry on.
Sure. Like I was saying, I want this number to stick in people's minds in terms of every single day in sub-Saharan Africa, 500 women die. Of those 500 women, approximately 80% are teenage girls between the ages of 15 and 19 years old. So as we're talking about the role of youth, as we're talking about Pan-Africanism, it's important to focus on education, because for many of those girls that are dying in pregnancy or that are dying in, in the postpartum period, these are girls who've been denied the opportunity to go to school, the opportunity to have an education similar to her brothers or her male relatives. And so while, yes, we do talk about the girl child and the need to educate the girl child, we're not saying that neglect the boy child, but historically, and evidence does show that the girl child has been neglected for a very long time. And, if we're able to get girls into school, if we're able to ensure that girls are empowered and also economically empowered, it's a multiplier effect. You will reduce maternal mortality, will improve child health, will decrease the number of babies that are born prematurely, will decrease the gender-based violence that's happening across the continent. As many of you are aware of those different forms that are taking place. A lot of development will definitely happen in the sense that it will be a progressive direction for everybody, and not just a select few, for those who have gone to school, for those who have traveled, for those who can use the digital space, for those who are, and I guess essentially privileged compared to others who might not have access to some of these resources. So, like I said, Professor Lumumba asked me to give brief remarks, and I know, the conference is kind of running a little bit behind schedule. So I will not keep this long, but in essence, for all those who are listening in your respective corners, I want you to understand that for Africa to develop, for Africa to get to where it needs to go, you need to focus on education. Because through education, people learn skills. Through education, people become the entrepreneurs that they want to be. Through education, especially of the girl child, we're improving so many other aspects within our economies. We're improving so many other aspects within our social environment, especially when it comes to health, when it comes to ensuring that women are surviving, children are surviving and thriving, families are being, families also being supported and healthy and thriving. All that is truly dependent on how society values women and girls, but more so how society is able to support the girl child to go to school. I see a lot of guys on the call today, which is great. Many of them young. So please excuse me for making a wrong assumption, but some of you are not yet fathers. And for those that are fathers, to really support the girl child to go to school, to be that advocate in the community, to be that advocate in your family. Of course, in each country, as a rich continent as Africa is, you have different cultural practices, different attitudes and perspectives when it comes to how women are regarded and girls are regarded. And so, being mindful of that environment and how to be able to work within that space and identifying champions in the community to be able to ensure that the girl child can go to school, to be able to make sure that in schools, you have the appropriate resources and facilities so that girls don't drop out of school because of their menstrual cycles, which of course has evidence in terms of the number of girls that are forced to drop out of school because there are no washrooms, there's no water, or just the schools are not friendly enough for these girls to be able to attend when they're in their menstrual cycles. So just basic reforms like that are truly significant in taking Africa to where it needs to go in terms of how do you want to see Africa in the years to come? And to also be reminded that in order to get to that point, we need to focus, or we need to embrace the fact that a girl child can go to school. A girl child brings a lot of value, not only to her family, but also to her country. With that, Susan, I think I'll stop right there. Like I said, I know you guys are kind of running behind on time, and I didn't want to kind of go over the brief remarks that I was asked to provide.
I just want to say a big thank you for even being mindful of the time that we have left. That was brilliant. Everything you've said is apt. It's fantastic. What you've just given the points, and it's come home to a lot of us from a long time ago, but then you've reminded us, of course, the girl child. One of the reasons why the girl child is something that we have to keep emphasizing is because women and girls are the most vulnerable. And I would like, of course, first of all, let me announce for the participants to please send their questions right now, because we're going to go next to taking the questions. One of the things that Africa, especially in recently, what's been going on in some parts of Africa with a lot of rape of the girl child, abuse of the girl child, and murder, rape and murder of the girl child. It cannot be overemphasized when we keep talking about empowering the girl child, because at the end of the day, the girl child will grow up to become the woman who eventually is women. When you empower women, you empower society, because women are built by nature to care, to protect. Women are the ones who are have the less propensity to be violent. We are peacemakers, we are homemakers, yet our society will be stronger when we understand that our strength lies in appreciating the girl child, educating the girl child, empowering the girl child to become the woman in the future that will become a change agent.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Ms. Tausi. And so we're going to be taking a break this time. We're just going to go straight into the questions and then the next session. I'm going to go to a question for Ms. Tausi. Tausi, there's a question here, and says, how can we be my sister's keeper, and what I think about uplifting the lives of women to ensure they have an equal place at the table?
To ensure they have what, I'm sorry?
To ensure they have equal place on the table.
So thanks for the great question, whomever asked that. And first of all, just like a ship, it cannot just make a turn overnight or even right away. And so, people have to approach this with sensitivity. So for example, in Somalia, a country that we work in, where we understand or we recognize what those barriers might be for girls to go to school, where they practice female genital cutting or female genital mutilation. They don't believe in girls going to school. You have almost 95% of girls that are denied an education versus another country where you might have girls that are able to go to school, and the barriers might be different. The barriers might be the fact that in this community or in certain societies within that country, they value the high bride price. And so, for a girl to stay at home and be safe and be secure and pretty much be untouched is something that is valued in terms of making sure that this girl, when she gets married at a young age, she's considered very pure. And that, of course, increases the bride price. So again, there isn't like an overall approach that can be used across the continent. However, I think where we need to start that conversation is involving multiple players around that table. So it's not just about having women around the table. It's about engaging with religious leaders. It's about engaging with, your business leaders within the community, especially the men. We all know that, Africa is a patriarchal society. It's a patriarchal country. And so I don't expect people to be able to turn this or shift this right away. It will take time. You're talking about behavior. It takes time to change behavior. You're talking about deeply rooted cultural practices or even beliefs about what a woman should do or what a girl should do. And so in order for us to get there, it has to be done with tact and skill, but then you also need voices around the table, especially the men, be able to actively engage men, to be able to champion for their daughters, to be able to champion for their sisters, to be able to speak up when violence is happening. Oftentimes, when we talk about gender-based violence, and I didn't really get deep into it, it happens within spaces that, the victim is familiar with, in their home, in their places of worship, in neighborhoods that they're familiar with. And so again, you have these instances happening, and women or girls don't have the support systems to be able to report or even be believed so that they can receive those support services that they actually deserve. So really, it's a conversation for everybody, but more so, we talk about the girl child. Like I said earlier, we're not neglecting the boy child, because we also need them to understand how to treat a woman, how to treat a girl, how to be respectful. We're not talking about rolling out red carpets. We're talking about respect. We're talking about, upholding a woman's dignity. We're talking about being partners, being teammates, in the sense of what do you bring to the table, being viewed as a contributor in a significant way, versus looking at women as either like sexual objects or things that are really not what women and girls are truly all about. So it's a conversation that has to happen in multiple ways, but also in familiar spaces. So for example, this platform right here, this works for the people who are watching right now. We would not have something like this for village elders. We would not have something like this for religious leaders. It would have to kind of be structured in a way that we want their buy-in at the end of the day, because we want to make sure that when we're able to impact them, when we're able to engage them in the conversation, they're fully bought into that space to be able to advocate for women and girls to go to school, women to work, because when we're able to increase or improve the social status of women and girls across Africa, that is what I'd like to call as the silver bullet for development for Africa.
Absolutely, that would be a silver bullet, like you said. Africa. Thank you so much. That was very well taken.